Hi everyone, it's Lori again, and I am back with more recommendations for read alouds. Now, last time my video focused in more on read alouds for that 4 to 7 age range, and so this one I'm going to say is maybe like 8 to 10 to 12, depending on the maturity of your kid. Now, again, a lot of these books could be enjoyed by kids younger than this, and I think all of them could be enjoyed by kids older than this age range. But if you're starting to read aloud and you happen to have kids kind of in this age range, this might be a good start. So I'm going to start with a couple of the really kind of obvious ones that I think a lot of people would say, well, duh, that would be a good read aloud. The first one I'm going to talk about is the Harry Potter series. Now, these books make great read alouds. They also have great audiobooks. But I wouldn't recommend reading all of them aloud, particularly to this age range, because they do get more mature in theme as they go on. So what I did when I read them aloud to my kids is I read books 1, 2, and 3, and then I made them wait a little while, and then they eventually wore me down, and I let them read the rest of the books on their own. So we may have done this a little bit on the earlier side. Maybe Eva was about 8, which would mean Charlotte would have been about 6 or something like that. But I do think these are great read alouds. As the books came out, my husband and I read them aloud together. So, they're just fun. If you are not a Harry Potter person, that is fine. I know some people don't particularly like the magic and such in these books, but I enjoy them, so I'm going to recommend them for good read alouds. Next up on my obvious list is the Chronicles of Narnia. So here's my copy of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I am a big proponent of reading these in publication order instead of chronological order. My copies came from a couple of different sets because I bought them all used. So I've got all sorts of random numbers on it. But this particular one is in the publication order. It says book 1. So The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is the first book published. If you get a newer set, the numbers will be different because I think maybe this would be book 2, but I can't really keep track. So anyway, I recommend that if you do want to do the Chronicles of Narnia, they make great read alouds, but go ahead and just Google publication order and read them in that order just to double check, because particularly if you have newer copies, or we have a complete collection of the Chronicles of Narnia that Charlotte has in her room, I wouldn't recommend that for the first time through, just because it is in chronological order instead of publication order, so just keeping track of where you're supposed to be reading might be really difficult. So start with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Great read aloud series. Okay, moving on, I have another series that I want to talk to you about. This is a newer series. It's not even complete yet, but it's one that we've been enjoying, and we've been backing the Kickstarter for the last couple books. And it's actually kind of 2 series that are going on. So that is the Green Ember series by S.E. Smith. So the Green Ember is the first book, and then the second book is Ember Falls, and the third book is Ember Rising. We just finished this one not very long ago. It had been sitting on our shelf for a long time. I don't know why we didn't get to it. We just kind of got into a read aloud slump. These are great books. It's rabbits with swords. You can't get much better than rabbits with swords. So it follows a brother and sister, Pickett and Heather, and then there's a war, and the evil beings are like these raptors and birds of prey. So Ember Rising, the one we just finished, got a little dark. They're all a little dark because they're about war, but maybe a little more violent than I was really expecting. But I think it's perfectly appropriate for ages 8 and up. I don't think that the violence, I think my husband really enjoyed the violence as a male, and maybe my girls and I were a little bit more like, that seems kind of excessively violent. But it's not terrible. It's just, we have a house of mostly girls, so we were like, do we really need quite that much violence? My girls really like Heather better than Pickett. Not surprising. I kind of enjoy Pickett too. So that's the Green Ember series, and they're pretty good sized books, so they'll keep you busy for a while. But S.D. Smith also has kind of a prequel series that goes along with the Green Ember. So we've got the Black Star of Kingston and the Wreck and Rise of Whitsun Mariner. So this tells the history of old Natalia, like the rabbits community before this terrible war. So it's kind of like the history behind the Green Ember series. So those are fun books as well. These are much, much shorter. Again, great for that age range. I think boys in particular would like these. Not saying that girls don't, but a lot of my book choices tend to be a little girly because I'm a girl and I have girls. So, and speaking of boy books, now this one is another series. I will say that I only read the first book in the series to the girls, and I read it to them when they were too young. I read this to them at the same time we were reading all of the Little House books, because it's kind of along that vein, but I really think I probably should have waited. So I have read the complete series myself, and I would recommend them all for read-alouds. I would definitely wait until kids are a little bit older, more in the 8 to 12 range than in that 4 to 7. And that series is the Little Britches series. These are by Ralph Moody. There's just a whole bunch of them. And so Ralph Moody was a little boy who moved to Colorado and lived on a cattle ranch. And then, different circumstances happen to his family, and he has to kind of support his family. So, it's set in Colorado, not that far from where we are. I mean, in the greater scheme of things. So I thought this would be great. Again, I read it a little too young to my girls, so they didn't really connect to it the way that I did. But I would recommend this one pretty highly for that 8 to 12-year-old range. We're going to kind of go back to my childhood. And I'm not really sure how, if I just decided I needed to find this. Oh, actually, I think I do know. I think I found it at a library, and so I checked it out. It was like, we need to read this aloud. And then the girls loved it, so I ended up getting us a copy. And I found out there was a second book. So this book is The Egypt Game, and it is by Zilpha Keatley Schneider. And this was a Newbery Honor book. So basically, it's a group of kids who kind of become obsessed with ancient Egypt, and they decide to kind of become Egyptians, and then there's a mystery that happens. So they're playing this Egypt game, and so then when the mystery happens, is it something to do with their Egypt game, or is it totally unrelated? So I just remember really enjoying this when I was a kid, and so we decided we better read it aloud. And I remember distinctly that we were reading this aloud when we were having our bathroom redone, because we were doing school in the basement, because we had construction going on upstairs. But they enjoyed this one too. So the Egypt Game I do recommend. And then when I was looking for this book, I found out there was a second book, and that book is The Gypsy Game. So kind of the same idea, except this time they're going to be gypsies. Not earth-shattering books by any means, but, they're fun. There's some suspense and mystery that happens in both of them. And it's just kind of a fun, kids playing at games sort of theme. So that was another set of books that you might consider. And then we do really enjoy Kate DiCamillo. This is the one we did as a family read aloud, The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane. I have read with one or the other girl some of the other books, and we've done some as audiobooks. So generally speaking, I have enjoyed everything we've read by Kate DiCamillo. This one, he's like a toy bunny trying to get back to his owner. But he goes through all sorts of different things. And this one does have kind of really sweet illustrations, so I kind of love that it's an illustrated one. And this is obviously an ex-library book, you can tell from the shiny cover. So The Mysterious Journey of Edward Tulane. And then there were a couple more when I was going through my Goodreads. I do have all of my read aloud books that we have done from about the year 2011 to now. I may have missed a few in there because sometimes it's hard to keep up on Goodreads. On my Goodreads in special shelves. So if you're interested in seeing some of the other books that we did do as read alouds, you could definitely check there. So some ones that I don't have, I think these were all Kindle editions that we had. We read quite a few of the Oz books by L. Frank Baum, starting with, of course, The Wizard of Oz. There is a ton of them. I think we read probably 6 or 7, and then we just kind of lost steam. Some of it was we decided to branch out in some other L. Frank Baum books. We tried the Sea Fairies, and that was okay. And then we tried something called The True Adventures of Santa Claus, and that pretty much killed my buzz for L. Frank Baum. I hated that book so much. It got a special shelf on Goodreads for a long time that was titled Terrible Books I Will Never Finish. It was the only one on that shelf, so now it's just in like abandoned. But the Oz books, however, are very charming. They are not very much like the movie The Wizard of Oz, so you can't go into it expecting it to be like that. But they are hilarious and fun read alouds, and I think they would be appropriate starting around age 8. And then a couple more that we really liked were by Elizabeth George Spear, The Sign of the Beaver and The Witch of Blackbird Pond, both kind of historical fiction type books. So those are 2 more that you might want to consider and check out. So this is kind of my middle range books for those read alouds. Obviously there are many more books that would make excellent read alouds that I don't read aloud for a variety of reasons. I do think The Hobbit would be a great one, but I am not comfortable trying to do The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings as a read aloud. There's just too much that's complicated, particularly in The Lord of the Rings with all the Elvish. I would much rather do audiobooks for those sorts of things. So sometime in the future I will do a video of my favorite family audiobooks. But these are some great ones for those kind of in-between ages, 8 to 10 or 12. They're fun books, a good variety of different things going on, some new, some really old. So I hope you enjoyed this one. If you have a read aloud that you think is great for ages 8 to 12, please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear more. And then if you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up and feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this. I will be doing at least one more read aloud video coming up soon. So thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.